And even our subconscious, we're connected to different sounds. There might be some sounds that you might not realize consciously, but that you actually connect to being scared or to fear, right? Because of something that happened when you were little or whatever.
You're listening to the Wealthy Woman Podcast, and I am your host and wealthy mentor, Dr. Michelle. My mission is to empower conscientious women entrepreneurs to create a life full of abundance, purpose, health, wealth, and joy. In this podcast, you'll learn how to elevate your health, lifestyle, and surroundings so you can tap into your power, show up more confidently, and focus on what really matters. Sharing your gifts, better serving your clients, and showing up even more for the people you love. This is today's businesswoman, the wealthy woman. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Woman Podcast. As you know, once a month, I love featuring, various people who can help you create a life of wealth, full of abundance, purpose, health, wealth, and joy. So today, I am introducing you to Maraliz Campos. Maraliz is a sound practitioner and wellness guide who challenges widely accepted industry narratives. Her pioneering sounds combine scientific and intuitive techniques to invite self-exploration. As a Latina with disabilities, she promotes accessibility and inclusivity while also teaching us to shift our unconscious reactions to chosen responses. Her integration of formal musical training with raw sensory curation have really helped her transition her own body from a state of severe disability to remission. She is a certified sound practitioner, yoga instructor, meditation facilitator, DJ, and sound designer who helps others ease stress with vibrations and movement using personal recordings, Himalayan and crystal singing bowls, tuning forks, violin, vocal looping, synths, and percussive instruments. You can catch her full bio in the show notes. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Maraliz. Aside from your bio, tell us a bit more about how you got here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
Yay.
And if I cough at any point, my apologies. I'm just getting over a little bit of a cold over here in New York. So yeah, let's just dive right in. So as you guys know, I'm a sound practitioner, I'm a wellness guide, and I kind of fell into this work in an interesting way. So my first career was actually in international nonprofit work. So I was moving around the world and I was working with demographics of people who were really suffering. Like I was in Korea for a while working with North Korean refugees and homeless children. And then I was in Paraguay, where I'm originally from, working with victims of sex trafficking. Then I moved to Texas, where I was working with the International Rescue Committee and then with domestic violence victims. So that was my first career. But throughout that whole time, I was getting sick and feeling a lot of chronic pain, and it was growing, becoming more widespread throughout my body throughout all those years. So it got to the point where I finally had to leave my job with domestic violence victims because I was having trouble walking. And every time I stood up, I was in this excruciating pain. So what ended up happening was throughout all these years, as my pain was increasing, it started in college, I was trying to figure out what was wrong. I didn't want to go to Western doctors at first. So I was going to acupuncturists, chiropractors, Chinese medicine, pursuing all of these other modalities first. And then I started checking in with different doctors, and I was seeking a diagnosis on 3 different continents.
Oh my goodness.
It took me going to a lot of doctors, which is pretty common for people with chronic illness, before I finally got a diagnosis. So when I was in Texas and I was working with domestic violence victims, I finally started to get diagnosed, and they diagnosed me with 12 different autoimmune and musculoskeletal and neurological diseases. All of them have a primary symptom of chronic pain. Some of the more notable ones are rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's syndrome, POTS syndrome, localized epilepsy, scoliosis, chronic migraines, chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that. So I wasn't making it all up in my head, which at that point, after a while of years and years of having all this pain, you start to think like, oh, wow, am I making this all up in my head? That's a really common experience for people with chronic pain or chronic illness, because the diagnosis takes so long usually.
Totally. I mean, with autoimmune conditions in general, I think what the average is like 4.5 years before any diagnosis is made.
Yeah, usually between 20 and 26 physicians visited.
Yeah.
In seeking a diagnosis.
Ugh.
It's really insane. And so then I started, trying all these different treatments, and it's kind of like just trial and error, right? Because every body is different. And so I was just like trying all these different things. And finally I was put on low doses of chemo, methotrexate, for 2 years. And a few weeks after I started the methotrexate, I started a yoga teacher certification.
Oh my goodness.
It was a 6-month training. I don't know. I just didn't want to like sit still and do nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was incredibly intense. None of my colleagues in the course, aside from my instructors, knew that I was on that treatment or that I had all those diseases at the time. I didn't share with them until afterward. But that was a really amazing experience, and it created a good container for me to be able to go through this extreme situation and feel supported in my journey deeper into myself, and really getting to know my own responses and reactions to what was happening in my body and in my life. So I'm really glad that it happened that way. And a few weeks after I started the yoga teacher training, I found a class that was called Sound Healing. And I'd always been a musician, was classically trained. And so I decided to go. So I hobbled over with my cane, and I realized that it provided me with just a few moments where my entire physical experience wasn't just an inundation of physical pain. So it provided me with like a short-term reference point in my short-term memory of an experience other than extreme pain, which was really powerful for me, because when your entire experience becomes colored by one color, you lose sight of and forget what it's like to be in different colors. So that was really powerful for me. So I kept going back, and that time period where I was feeling a bit of relief was becoming longer and longer. And so I just kept going back, and then eventually I started to learn about it and started to practice sound meditation and guide others, and got more involved in the wellness field as I graduated as a yoga teacher. And then I started a mentorship in yoga therapy for 8 months. And that's kind of how I transitioned into wellness.
Oh, that is an incredible journey. I mean, like, amazing. It's so clear that you've found your purpose, right? Your purpose and your passion. And it's like, how awesome is it that they're so aligned, that you're already a musician, like you're able to bring this message, right, through sound, like to help other people who are experiencing that. And I think that just like, I think sound frequency is such an underappreciated therapy. And it's, I mean, you think about people who like do a lot of dance, or like who listen to music therapeutically and don't even, like, they're not consciously listening to it for therapeutic reasons, but like it ends up helping you calm down. It helps you like center yourself or focus, or like maybe even stirs up certain emotion. Like, it's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And people are starting to catch on now. And it's kind of like a wave now of people who, there are like two camps. There are people who really have been involved in it for a while, or have studied it and really see it as this like professional work. And then there's like the fad kind of popularity where it's like, oh, I just buy these bowls and then I'm doing this work, you know?
That's so interesting. I feel like that's the case for any, like almost any modality, right? There's like the people who really get underneath and like the deep stuff. And then there's other people who just really stay superficial, right?
Exactly. So there's like a lot of really cool research happening a lot of really cool work happening, like that isn't necessarily being seen by a majority of people. And then you have like this kind of pop version, which is like the more accessible kind of, standard, like yoga teacher buys a bunch of bowls and makes a bunch of videos playing bowls and they're a sound healer,
But there's nothing really, like there's no substance behind it.
Well, it's just, I think the fact that, sound frequency is really, it's a physical thing. So there is substance behind it, but there isn't necessarily an awareness or knowledge behind the practice. And my philosophy of my work is like, I can't take people where I haven't been before. And I can't guide people if I don't know where I'm guiding them to. So especially with sound, because sound, it touches us on a cognitive, emotive, and physical level. And it's so completely inundating and powerful in that way. So we kind of just break it down really simply and explain what I mean by that. So on a physical level, obviously we have the physical sound waves, right? And they're massaging us like from the outside in. They're touching us. We're made mostly of water. Water responds to sound. You have cymatics, which is like the visual representation of what sound does to liquid and matter in general. So we have all these physical responses to sound as it touches the vagus nerve and stimulates the vagus nerve. That triggers and starts to allow the body to move from a fight or flight mode, the reptilian part of the brain, to the rest and digest in the prefrontal cortex, which brings all the blood flow back to the organs, central organs in the middle of the body, brings oxygen, nutrients, allows for the lymphatic system to start to flush, release toxins, allows the muscles to relax. Couple that with deep breathing, and you're bringing more relaxation to the muscles of the nervous system. So these are all things that we don't say 100% will happen in every sound practice, but these are things that we make space for in sound practices, right? That can happen. And so that's on the physical level. And that's just some of them. So if we're talking about from an emotional level, there are a lot of things that happen when people are finally able to release and relax, right? We finally start to like let go, and we can finally allow ourselves to feel things that we've been feeling but maybe have been ignoring or running through or haven't been focusing on. So emotionally it provides this like really powerful experience where people now feel empowered they have that space to explore safely within themselves what it is they're feeling, their emotional landscape, and their internal family systems, right? So like the places that all their emotions have in their, let's say in their neighborhood inside of themselves, where their emotions live, all the different houses, they can check on them and see if they're in order and all these different things, because we've created space for them to do that in a relaxed way. So cognitively, have you ever listened to like a song, like you were saying, and like it makes you feel a certain way, and as soon as you hear the intro, you like start to feel something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we all have memory associations and emotional associations to different sounds and songs, right? And even our subconscious, we're connected to different sounds. There might be some sounds that you might not realize consciously, but that you actually connect to being scared or to fear, right? Because of something that happened when you were little or whatever. Maybe you got stung by a bee, so the buzzing of a bee scares you or incites fear. So the vagus nerve, incidentally, which I talked about earlier, which is one of the easiest ways to stimulate it is through auditory means, but you can stimulate it in other ways.
That's so interesting that you say that right there, just because a lot of the time, I talk about the vagus nerve with my clients too. And one of the things that I recommend is like humming.
Yes, beautiful. Like, humming is so self-soothing. It's so self-soothing. Yeah, it's great for anxiety.
It's awesome.
Perfect. I love that you do that. That's great biofeedback training. Oh, awesome. You just put a huge smile on my face.
Yay! I mean, it's such a, I mean, the vagus nerve, like for people who don't know, it's called the wandering nerve. It's like basically what connects our gut and our brain. It is like the gut brain
Yeah.
connection. And so a lot of times it's not functioning optimally. And so sound, like you're saying, is such an amazing way to heal that and to restore that connection. I love that so much.
Exactly. And it touches almost every one of our organs. It's like
Exactly.
really, really powerful.
Yes.
It's like this major highway in our body
Yes,
that we need
exactly.
to make sure that we take care of. It's like adopt a highway.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But incidentally, it's also connected to the to like the pain center, the fear center of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
So that has very powerful implications when we talk about sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like triggering it with sound. So it's this really interesting thing where we have like as sound practitioners, we have direct access to someone's on all these different on all three planes, the three planes that make them up as a human, their human sensory experience. We have direct access to all three of those,
So amazing.
which is why, study and learning and not just about sound, but like about the body, about the emotional impact, about the psychological impact, like all those things to me are very essential and vital in order to be able to really work well with clients and be able to provide value
Mm-hmm.
to clients.
Mm, I love it so much.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if we can integrate a little sound sample too, maybe at the end of the interview or something like that. I think that would be so. But we can talk about that later.
yeah. I'm sure we could figure that out.
Yeah.
I don't have everything out now, but we could do that. I do record here at my place. I'm actually going to release stuff on Spotify in the coming
Yay.
months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll for sure link to all of your spots, like Instagram, I know for sure, and like anything else that you want in the show notes. Absolutely. So I'm curious, just like with your amazing background and like all of your experience on different continents and like working with different types of people and like now what you're doing, like did you ever see like because I consider you an entrepreneur. Like you are doing something, you're following your purpose and your passion, and you're utilizing all of these different tools and strategies and resources that you've collected over the years, and you've kind of created this thing, right? And so,
Uh-huh.
like, how, like, did you ever consider yourself an entrepreneur? Like, did you ever see yourself wanting to be an entrepreneur? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So interesting. I get asked a lot about this kind of thing, like, and whether it's with the word entrepreneur or even just like a speaker or influential person or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the most freeing things, which we often talk about when we're like suffering or struggling, is releasing attachment to the suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, even more freeing than that was releasing attachment to hope.
Oof, I just got the chills.
So it was like releasing this attachment to an otherness, an other state of what I was currently.
Mm.
So releasing the need to be in a different state or need to know what that state would be.
Mm.
Then that allowed me to really explore myself fully in the present moment. And that change, the thing about change is inevitable anyway. Change
Mm-hmm.
is one of the only guaranteed things about life, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Change is always happening. So we've got this idea in our society a bit backwards where we talk about having to catalyze change or cause change. But how about instead of looking at it as an upstream battle where we're trying to force change or where we're trying to change the direction of the river that we're in, why don't we look at it as though there are all these rivers around us of possible change? And we see which changes are the ones that are most conducive to the state I'm in now.
Mm.
And I just jump in that river.
Mm.
because change is happening and it is going to happen. So how can I just support myself in the space I'm in now and accept and support the changes that would best work for me and with me?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having to focus on catalyzing a change to get to a specific place. So it's a different approach, but we're operating in the same environment. It's just that we're operating a bit more freely, and we're removing that pressure on ourselves. We're actually removing the walls that we are building for ourselves by seeing it that way.
Yeah, and kind of practicing, I guess, like being present. Like people,
exactly.
There's a lot of stuff out there in the, I don't know what it's called now, like new agey spiritual world or whatever, where it's just like, practice gratitude or practice this or that or whatever, affirmations. And a lot of times there is that sense of like being outside of yourself or seeking this higher self or seeking this other, like you're saying, instead of, being with yourself now and knowing that, just being and accepting and like acknowledging you now, like you have everything that you need, like, exactly. That's okay.
Exactly. It's like this idea of like raise your frequency. And I'm like, no, I mean, there are low frequencies, there are high frequencies, there are mid frequencies. They all are a part of life. They're just, the direction is just a direction. It's not a value judgment unless we make it one.
Totally.
And so instead of seeing it as like this linear thing, how about I'm at the center of the circle? That's where I'm at. And all of these experiences, emotions, activities are going on all around me. And sometimes they're closer in proximity to me, and sometimes they're more intense in that way, or they're farther away. But they're all going on simultaneously, and that's fine. And I'm just turning around, facing different directions at different points, and being impacted by them in different ways, depending on how close they are to me in proximity at that moment.
Totally. Or even like, I mean, considering like a radio dial, like all these frequencies, like you say, are happening at all times. And it's like we can choose where we want to tune in and like what feels right and like what's in sync with us right now. Ooh,
exactly. Instead of trying to, instead of thinking that we need to like spark it from nothingness, right? Or that we need to be the originators of it.
Yeah. Ooh, I like it.
So that's kind of my approach to things. And in a way, my body is a little bit of a ticking time bomb because with the types of condition I have, there's no cure for any of them. So I just kind of live with them. And so every moment, every day is just kind of like, okay, I can function. So that's what I'm going to do.
That kind of brings us into the next question pretty well. Like just, doing what you do, being in the state that you're in, how do you stay motivated and driven when things don't go as planned?
Yeah, which is all the time.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. It's it's technically called being in remission. So that just means that my illnesses I still have them. And they're still active, but they're not completely debilitating. So I've been in remission for 2 years now. And it's been interesting. I'm still learning what it means to be in this state, moving among a world that was designed for people who don't have chronically ill bodies. And that's a very fascinating thing. So part of a very important tenet of my life curation is sensory curation, and just really, it's really actually like an all-encompassing life curation. I just think it's so important and I've learned that it's so important, especially for me, to really intentionally curate every aspect of my life and to the degree that I can. And that means not forcing things, but coming at it, because I come at it from a space of like observing what's already present and then just choosing what is most edifying and nourishing. That allows me the freedom to be able to do that. And so that is on all fronts, like curating very specifically like my work situation so that I have flexibility to be able to um, not not have to be somewhere at, like in the morning hours, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have to be, if I don't want to be, if I'm sick or if I'm
Mm-hmm.
stiff because of the
Mm-hmm.
arthritis, and being able to maximize the times when I am able to do a lot so that I can then create a buffer for myself for the times when I'm not able to, and curating the people in my life, people who are supportive, that I can have mutually supportive relationships of reciprocity with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very open and upfront about the things that I have. And I learned by, not being able to even lift my hands or wash my hair or sit up by myself very early on in my 20s that we need each other.
Mm.
And so I was stripped of the shame of asking for help. So inherent is that in that is the fact that then I also provide help for the people that I ask help from. So there's that reciprocity there, which can really translate into deeper relationships. And in my experience, and so those are a few of the ways that I kind of curate, but a lot of it has to do as well with just this internal acceptance constantly of the inconsistency that I live with. And I'm constantly in a state of unknowing what the next moment is going to bring physically. So just constantly being with yourself and supporting yourself and being okay with that.
I love that. I think that is incredibly powerful to it's almost like you're in complete surrender mode. Like, I know you basically say, like, I know things are going to go unplanned, and hey, that's cool because I've got my systems in place that allow me to be flexible. And like you said, you've curated your environment to be flexible with you and understanding of whatever is going to happen. And so there's this almost like radical acceptance of the unknown.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
So over your life, what book or person has inspired you the most?
So it's hard to say the most, but there are a couple of people who have really inspired me. Of course, like my mom. Yeah, my mom. She's incredibly strong. She, moved to a country where she didn't have anyone so that I would be able to go to school here. Moved us back and forth. And yeah, she was just an incredibly strong, smart, creative, brilliant person who gave her all to us. And then my grandfather, I come from generations of refugees and immigrants. So my grandparents fled Europe and fled to South America from my mom's side. My dad's side, I'm indigenous, Paraguayan, and Argentine. So for my mom's side, they fled down there and they started this German community in the middle of the desert. People were dying all around them. They didn't even know what plants were okay to eat.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so really amazing and inspiring on that end. So my own family history from both sides has been really inspirational to me, just generations and generations of uprooting to different continents, literally like 4 generations of moving all to different continents for the next generation.
That like unknowing is like ingrained, or that like unplanned thing is like ingrained in your heritage.
Exactly. And all those generations were also all musicians, composers.
Oh my
and my grandfather he created medicine from natural herbs and plants and honey and it was bees. So like all
cool.
this. Yeah. So it's like all very much a part of my bloodline and my heritage. And so my own family is a big source of inspiration to me. My sister's a single mother. She's really brilliant. My brother is one of the most brilliant musicians I know. Father's incredibly smart. He had an accident before I was born where he cracked his skull open, but although he is forced to live with that every day, he's still incredibly resilient. So there's all of that. And then aside from them, like great thinkers is like Thich Nhat Hanh is I went through my transmission ceremony of his 5 mindfulness trainings and I started initially my meditation practice was in Zen. So I was trained through his teachings, and he's the big influence on me. Great thinkers, like everyone from like Kant to even Nietzsche. Like I love reading.
Yeah.
So all different philosophies and thoughts. I mean, for musicians as well, like Nicholas Jarre is a big influence on me. My brain is like, right now is just like a waterfall of names. It's very hard to, I mean, great thinkers like even people like Murakami, who's a fiction writer,
Yeah.
Murakami.
Yeah, I've actually read a couple of his books. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, even him, or like, it's just, I really take inspiration from everything that I choose to ingest, which is why I choose to ingest things. So I know that it's going to impact me because it does impact us, but I want it to impact me to the highest degree possible. So I'm intentional about what I ingest. So I'm intentional not just about my edible diet, but my audio diet, my visual diet, my physical diet, all the things that I curate for this museum that is my life experience.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, if you had any self-care practices, like, to help you recharge, or like what your non-negotiables are. But I feel like, those are huge. Like, the non-negotiable being like the fact that you curate your surroundings, and like you said, like, you curate everything for your museum, which is, I love that visualization. But is there, like, that's a big one. Are there any other things that you do to help, like, recharge?
Yeah, there are some simple things. Like, my roommate actually introduced me to ocean water.
What is this?
That? No. So it's something I started doing in the mornings, and it's really great. It's like hot water with Himalayan salt, lemon, ginger, honey. I put coconut oil in mine.
Oh my goodness.
And you just drink a big jar of this.
Okay, I need this.
It's so good. And you feel so hydrated the rest of the day.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
it sounds like a good electrolyte mix. I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely something. And then I do matcha and cacao every day for energy in the afternoon. And then I do a lot with like plant medicine and different natural herbs. Also, my country, we do so much with that. So that's also a huge part of my self-care. Yoga is a big part of my self-care. And sleep. Sleep is actually high priority for me.
Yeah, I feel you there. Sleep is like a total non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, and it's so important,
so important.
The lights are important, but we've kind of like we're driving ourselves crazy by not letting ourselves sleep.
Totally.
It's a huge problem.
Totally. like, this hustle and bustle lifestyle, it's like sleep is the first thing to go, I feel like. And it's like, no, that's like, productivity aside, like, you are totally messing with like hormonal imbalance, inflammation levels, like all kinds of stuff. Like, sleep is immediately. Like, there's so many studies that show like even 1 or 2 nights of, sleep deprivation, whether, that just means like less than, 6 hours of sleep or whatever, like completely affects so many aspects of your health. Yeah. Right there
we're teaching our students to not sleep,
Totally.
Instead of teaching them to maximize the time that they're awake.
Yes.
Which is a totally different approach again,
Yes. Absolutely.
It's like the idea that people have this aversion to suffering, and so they run away from it, or they try to solve it or fix themselves instead of maximizing the times when they feel like they're thriving.
Totally.
It's very different. it's just a slight pivot, but in the long run, it makes a completely different approach to life. One that's way more relaxed, one that's way more in sync and in
Mm,
tune with our natural rhythms, and one where
absolutely.
you're fully accepting of yourself.
Mm, totally. 100%.
Uh-huh.
What are your top three favorite like podcasts, blogs, vlogs, or whatever, like resource that you listen to or watch? What are those top three if you have them?
So I really love TED Talks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I love TED Talks because I go on there and I even will listen to things it's like things that I wouldn't normally gravitate to.
Mm.
So try to listen to things like, oh, that's not really interesting to me. Okay, I'm going to listen to it.
I love that. Just like pushing yourself a little outside of your comfort zone. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
I
So
love that.
as far as like something like that for like, self growth, and that's something. I listen to a lot of spoken word poetry,
Mm-hmm.
actually. Andrea Gibson, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I start every morning with poetry. Um, and as far as like work life and entrepreneur stuff, I like Work Life with Adam Grant a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I love any kind of like podcast that talks where they bring in experts to talk about like how to maximize your work life or your business. And then as far as music goes, I like let me see. Pensado's Palace is good. There are like a couple different things that my roommate kind of turned me on to. Have to do with like synths or production, sound design, all of that kind of stuff.
Perfect. So, what else do I want to ask you? If you had a little magic in your pocket, what is the one thing that you would change in the world?
I would, because when we talk about suffering, a lot of people will their go to is like, yeah, but I mean, and I say this too, like suffering can be a magnifying glass for all of our experiences of joy and appreciation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the construct that we live in. But in an ideal world for me, we wouldn't require suffering in order to appreciate the lack thereof, so it wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be that. I mean, I've just in my work with sex trafficking, with homelessness, with refugees, I've just seen so much domestic violence. I've just seen so much suffering.
Yeah.
Chronic illness, people with chronic illness, disabilities, people with cancer. It's just like I've just seen so much suffering, and we all see so much suffering constantly. So if it didn't have to be that way, which in the constructs that we have now, that is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I would change.
What is your current project or passion?
This is a good question. I'm in a place of transition right now.
Tell us about it. What are you doing?
It's interesting. I was just talking to my partner about it last night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I took him to dinner.
Mm-hmm. To talk about it?
No.
Let me sit you down and tell you what I'm doing.
No, I just wanted to take him to dinner,
Nice.
but it came up. That's funny. Um, I'm in a place of transition right now. I just got back from tour. I was
Mm-hmm.
certifying others to teach sound meditation in a
Mm,
different state
very cool.
through a program that I created. I So I've just got off of working like a ton, doing a lot of live events because I DJ too, and I mix my live sets with my DJing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got off of like doing a lot of work with performing out. So this month, I'm really in a state of like working on recordings. I'm working on book proposals because I have two books that I'm writing.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. One of them is more of like a debunking myths and wellness kind of coffee table type book. And the other one is more has to do with like how to live well while unwell. And so those are the two that I'm kind of working on getting recordings out. And I have a couple projects right now that I have not revealed yet that I'm working with a couple colleagues.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that'll be coming up soon. And yeah, I'm the fall. I'm hoping to reveal I'm going to be unveiling a course in sound meditation that people can do.
Nice, like a DIY online course?
Like an online kind of thing, yeah, where I can guide them. And then a part of it is has modules. Just basically helping us to change our relationship to sound, because I can teach a lot of different types of meditation and physical practices, but one of the reasons why I really stuck with sound as my primary vehicle for stress relief and for kind of a doorway into this idea of life curation is because of a few things. One, it speaks to everyone. You can even be deaf and still benefit from sound work. You can be cognitively impaired and still benefit from sound work. Two, it transcends all barriers that are inherent in being a human. So those that we create, like culture, language, religion, sexual orientation, preferences, hatreds, and things that are inherent in being a human, like the fact that you're in a different body than me, you have a different nervous system than me, right? So it transcends all boundaries and barriers, created and inherent in the human experience. And it also provides us with this experience when we're practicing together at once of being completely safe on your own, individual, in your own journey, and at the same time, 100% fully connected with the collective community of human consciousness. So it's a full representation in that way of our place as a human being in this sea of humans, or this ocean of humans, this vast ocean of humans, all throughout history and timelines and everything, right? So I stuck with sound for those reasons. And I found that with sound, we often walk around as if we don't have as much control over how we perceive sound as we do with other sensory organs that we have. However, what if we intentionally change our relationship to the sounds that we're receiving? For example, an ambulance, right? That's such an awful sound. And it's so freaking loud. I don't know if they made them louder now. It sounds to me like they're louder this year or something. Like, I don't know if they upped the ante on it. They're like, oh, it's like, it's at 200 decibels. We need to get it to 300 or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
But it's, the ambulance is incredibly loud and disorienting. And so it used to cause me a lot of stress and, spike my cortisol levels and tighten up my body and put me into fight or flight. So I started to try to train myself to listen to it. Let me rephrase that. I started to invite myself to listen to it as a crazy opera singer, just doing this crazy song.
Oh my goodness.
And so in my head, I started to add violins above it, doing this crazy staccato. And then I started to add drums underneath it, doing tremolo and these crazy kind of drum lines. And so it becomes this crazy song. So the more I do that, the more that becomes habit. And then now every time I hear an ambulance, that song comes through my head and I'm just laughing.
Oh my goodness. I love that. It's such a perspective shift. And now, you have to create this. Using I don't know, digital music, whatever, a sound sample of an ambulance and then create, totally layer on the stuff. I need to hear that. That's awesome.
My partner, he's a producer and a DJ as well. And he actually creates, he'll field, because we do field, a date for us is going upstate and field recording. So he'll field record the subway, and he's created songs from these kinds of sounds, the city sounds.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I'll send you some.
Yeah, please. That's awesome.
um,
Oh, so cool.
yeah, but things like that, or like children. I know this might make me sound kind of harsh, but like I don't have kids, so hearing kids like laughing and playing outside was really annoying to me.
Uh-huh.
I was like, just be quiet. And but then I started to invite myself to listen in a way where I was actually hearing resiliency, and I was hearing opportunity, and hearing
Oh.
enjoyment, and hearing excitement. And then I would start to think about times when I had new opportunities, or when I was excited, or when I
Oh my gosh.
experienced newness. And so it's this different way of listening to everything around us. So my course that I'm going to reveal in the fall just kind of takes us through what it means to really integrate and get to know ourselves intimately on three different planes, with silence, deep listening, and sound production. So it's like those three different kind of spaces where we operate in relation to our audio diet.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
So
love
that
that.
if we
That's
look at it
so
that way,
beautiful.
like every single sound around us, from the moment you wake up, provides within it, it contains innumerable opportunities for us to experience awe, joy,
Mm.
laughter, enjoyment. It's like taking, if our day is a coloring page, it's like taking normal colors and splashing neon onto it,
Mm.
or putting glitter or whatever it is
Yeah.
to, to add
Yeah.
dimension, right? So like,
Oh.
but we're choosing how we want to perceive it. And if we create a habit of that, really, really, it can cause an incredible shift in how we relate to the world.
Absolutely, because you're literally reprogramming your subconscious mind, but you're using sound as a
Exactly.
tool to do it. And I think that's brilliant. You're like blowing my mind right now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this, and this. Like
I'm
that is,
so glad. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that is
and if you
brilliant.
think
I love
about
that.
from a fight or flight standpoint, like sound really is one of the things that keeps us on edge. I mean, we use it in movies. The whole point of having the
Mm-hmm.
horror films, the soundtrack, is to induce fear, is to
Exactly.
induce feelings of romance or connection. I
Yes.
mean, that
Yes.
is what we use sound for. So why not take all of the sounds in our immediate surroundings and become the conductors of our own soundtrack?
Oh, so good. Yes. Totally. That's such an empowering way to look at it. Like, yeah, I
Exactly.
love that. I love that so much. Oh, I'm excited for your course to come out.
Thank you. Me too.
It's so
It's gonna be
cool.
fun.
Totally. Oh my God. Awesome. Is there anything else like that I didn't ask you that you want to share with our audience?
Um, I really am just excited for the fact that I got to talk to you. I'm excited for the fact
Mm,
that we are in an age right now where we have access to so much information.
mm,
And I just want to encourage and invite all of your listeners to do a couple things. One, to bring to mind a couple people that love you just the way you are, for who you are.
mm,
And then bring to mind the reasons why they love you.
mm.
What are the things they love about you? Maybe they love your smile. Maybe they love your laughter. Maybe they love the kind things you say, your quirkiness, whatever it is. And to keep those things close to you, because we're so hard on ourselves. And especially in this world of wellness and this pursuit of trying to be everything for everyone, including for ourselves, we are our hardest critics.
Mhm.
And so sometimes seeing that other people love you, seeing why they love you, that can bring back into perspective how amazing we are. Bring back into perspective that maybe we don't have to be so hard on ourselves. Maybe if instead of trying to change who we are or be something different or in a different place, maybe instead the journey is about getting to know ourselves so intimately that we know at any point and moment in time what it is that we need.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
How can the audience find you? I know they're going to want to look your stuff up.
Yes, perfect. I think would it be okay if we put a link for my newsletter?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll put a link for everything in the show notes for sure. Mm-hmm.
So put a link to the newsletter. My Instagram is a really great way to connect with me. I put up lots of like educational videos and different things on there. I talk a lot about wellness and sound. My newsletter is key. I'm going to be putting stuff out on Spotify in the next few months. Yes. So I'll be putting all that out on the newsletter. I have a couple videos out on YouTube. I don't do too much up there, but it's worth looking at. And my SoundCloud as well. You can check out my DJ mixes, as well as some of my original recordings on SoundCloud too. So we'll put all those links up.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in the show notes for sure. Maraliz, this has been so much fun and so educational, and I think that it's also been really introspective. And so I just thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, and I'm so excited to see what you have coming up next.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been really great. You have a really wonderful voice also, which has made it really pleasant for me. You have just such a strong, confident, and yet it's really endearing and like welcoming cadence to it.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So that is a wrap. I hope you loved that interview. What were your key takeaways from this episode? I'm so curious. You know, one of the most beautiful things I gained from this interview was the practice of associating specific sounds with specific states of being. I think that can be a really, really profound practice, especially for those of us who lead really busy lives. Having those sort of sound cues throughout the day are super, super cool. You know, tuning into those everyday sounds and having them trigger states of gratitude, joy, abundance, so they can help us shift out of our typical stressful states of fight, flight, or freeze, and help us realign and ground and calm our nervous system so we can actually be more productive and creative and really present and show up right in our day. So if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone you love. And don't forget to take a screenshot of you listening and tag me at wealthywoman.co. Tune in next week for more awesome and actionable info, and I will chat with you then. All right, ladies, thank you for listening to another transformational episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You know my mission is to help inspire and empower women to share their gifts, better serve their clients, and show up even more for the people they love. So if you enjoyed this episode, leave an awesome review so more women can find us and join us in creating a life of wealth.